So when you want to change how the text appears, which is really formatting text or changing the appearance of text, you can always select parts of it, all of it, even a letter, all those different things, and make changes from that selection right there. Now, you can right-click on it, or often when you just select the text like that, you'll get this simple and quick font options. It does carry over into paragraph options and styles, but those are right there so that you can work with them. So I'm going to select this area right here. And again, you can change your font here. You can make it different. That's a formatting of text change. You can choose a different size for this. There we go. So we had it on 12, let's make it 14. Now the next two buttons, that does that as well. It increases the font and decreases it. Now it increases and decreases as it's listed here, just like you're doing here. But if you want it to be a certain size, you can type that in. Let me just put it in 17 and hit enter. It could also be 17.5. There we go. So you do have the ability to make it exactly the font size or really close to what you want. Okay, and so that's increase and decrease. Format Painter, the styles and the numbering and bullets, we'll do all of those in a different or a separate session. So let me address these right here. So we have font colors. Okay, so you can change the look. And you need to be careful how different you make these. You want to make sure that they complement each other. That's going to be hard to read. That makes that point. Red can typically mean danger. If it's a part of your branding colors, then it's probably more acceptable. Different things that elicit responses. Like green, go, red, stop, yellow, orange for cautions, just depending on what your culture tends to view colors as. So in some cultures, red is very royal, those kinds of things. So make sure that you're following your branding templates so that you're not straying too far from that or not at all. And make sure that the colors are communicating exactly the way you want them to. All right, so we'll stick with a blue here. This right here is highlighting. You typically only do that if you're really trying to draw somebody's attention to it. It's typically used when you're collaborating and updating things or highlighting things to make sure that you address them, those kinds of things. So you have lots of color options for that. Typically not used unless it's for effect. You do have bold, which is already on. I just turned that off. There we go. And here it is up here. So we'll draw your eyes up here to bold. And again, you can use your keyboard commands for bold. Here's italics and underline. Okay, so those are good as long as they're used consistently. Underlining is really going to focus people to it or section things off. You may not need to use it because this is already bold and italics and it's a different color from anything above it or to the left, or in this case below it as well. So it's pretty much set apart. So just think about those things. I mean, while you can do all these things, you may not want to do all these different things. By the way, in the underline, you can hit the down arrow and now you have more than one option than a typical underline. So you can get very creative very quickly. And with these kinds of underlines, wave underline, though, some people might think there's a problem with that information, which could make that a way to draw attention. You can even change the color of that underline, and then getting into more underlines, you're going to get back into this where there's a lot of those available. Okay, all right. So that's bold, italics, underline. Strike through. Typically, when we're using that in collaboration or saying this is done, we've addressed this. It could also be used where you're trying to say, we know this is what we were saying before, this was the procedure before, whatever that information is, and now we no longer do that. So you can use it in that type of scenario. Now these next two, subscript and superscript. So let me give you an example here. It's often used when you're doing a registered trademark or those kinds of things. Let me just bring you down here and click at the bottom. Let's say that you were wanting to put in 10 to the power of 2. So I put in 10 and then I put in a 2. Well, that's not going to look right. And let me zoom in just to make it easier to see what we're doing. So I want 10 to the power of 2. I can select that. And then what I want to do is I want to put it superscript, so it's up and above. So there I've got 10 to the power of 2. So whatever you select can either be a subscript. There it's kind of down below. You see it goes below the 10. And then superscript brings it up above or just barely above, so it's separated. Now be aware, because you're clicked right here, if you keep typing, it's going to keep that up there in more of a superscript style. So you'll want to turn that off, and so that it goes back to the regular style, to the power of, something like that. Okay. Now there are a lot of other options, and we will get to those in other sessions. However, there is one more that is available. We did it here when we did this part right here, but just so you notice it, it's here, and you can go into more colors. And if you have particular colors for your branding, you want to make sure you put those numbers in for RGB codes or HSL codes. Standard allows you to click on different colors in a palette, and it'll show you what the current color is and what the new color is. So just depending on what you're doing, you may want a different shade of blue, and click OK, and now you have that. So as we get into other elements of formatting text, we'll cover all of these other options. We'll get into paragraph, and we'll cover styles. So these are good ways to learn how to work with the formatting of your text.